The Pac-12 and the Mountain West are back in court. And I'll tell you, this is not going to end well for the Pac-12. And I know that Pac-12 people come in here and they get all pissed off and they tell me I hate the Pac-12. I'm just going to continue to stand on the things that I have told you from day one, specific to the poaching fees, because we'll talk about the exit fees in a while. The poaching fees, and I think this is really important, the poaching fees are part of a contract that the Pac-12 signed. And it is without argument that the Mountain West extended a lifeline, if you will, what I like to call a life raft, to a league that was dead in the water, the Pac-12. They had nobody wanting to play them. There was nobody else. And the Mountain West came through and gave them a scheduling agreement that had a provision in there. If you're going to take teams from our league to expand your league, you will pay us money. The Pac-12 signed that agreement. Now, afterward, and now that we're in court, the Pac-12 is saying, hey, we signed that agreement knowing that the poaching clause was invalid. And that is why they filed an antitrust case. That argument has never won in court. You executed a contract, you broke the provisions of the contract, and then after you break the provisions of the contract, you then admit that you knew the poaching fees were irrelevant or were not enforceable. So you entered into a contract in bad faith. So any way you slice this, the Pac-12 is fighting an uphill battle. What they were in court for today was a hearing requested by the Mountain West on a motion to dismiss that lawsuit. And the judge heard the arguments and took them under advisement and will rule hopefully sooner than later. But again, I go back to this whole situation of this is life or death for the Pac-12. It is as simple as that. If the Pac-12 does not win this case and they have to pay the $55 million and attorney's fees, I have no idea how the Pac-12 survives. Because there are people close to this situation who believe that the Pac-12 would be damn near insolvent. They point immediately to the cost of producing their own games, which I continue to go back to that. The media rights agreement that we know exists is the CW and CBS Sports. Largely, all of their bigger games are going to be on the CW. The biggest portion of their games will be on the CW. They will get a game or two on CBS. And so, you know already right out of the gate, anything on the CW is going to be produced in-house at the cost of the Pac-12. And the argument that Pac-12 fan wants to make is, oh, well, but they're paying us to produce those games. No, actually, they're not paying to produce those games because the financial terms of the deal with the CW are shocking, I know, not being released. So we don't know the finances of it. But when you use your own equipment and you use your own staff and you use your own facility and you simply send a satellite feed to the CW, you're producing your own games. And that is not cheap. And maintaining that studio, maintaining that equipment, and paying the human cost to produce those games is not cheap. And you can call it whatever you want. But whatever your media rights fees that are incoming are, they're offset by the cost of producing those games. And then you add on top of that what now is for certain 3 to 5 years of legal fees, where nobody in the history of college football on the conference level has ever spent more money on legal fees than the Pac-12. Ever. You're in real danger if you lose this case of being financially insolvent. And Jake, sadly, legal experts I've asked, contract lawyers that I've asked, and common sense people don't see a path for the Pac-12 to win this argument.
Yeah, I just don't know what the path would be. It is one of the rare cases where you can't really, like, because when you're in an argument with someone or you're in like a suit, not an argument, like a legal suit. Typically, there are ways where you can kind of snake through it a little bit. You can kind of say, well, this is how we perceive this clause, or like this is what it means to us. Like you can kind of bend the rules a little bit, if you will, but I think when it comes to simpler situations, meaning simpler contracts that are not legalese for like a million pages of massive corporate companies, like this is a very straightforward, hey, two people or two entities, created a contract, agreed to those terms, and then executed that contract, and now one side doesn't like it. And that's what I think is tough for the Pac-12, is that this is not a complex thing to understand. This is not like they don't have a way to say like, oh, well, we were confused, or, like, oh, well, like this happened. Like, no, dude, there's no way for you to claim that. And that's what I think, like, because nobody's arguing like the fees are in the contract. Nobody's arguing that you signed that contract. Nobody's even arguing that you signed that contract in right mind, right? That you were not under duress.
Right.
Like
Right.
nobody's even arguing that. Like all the Pac-12 keeps saying in their statements is we're confident in our legal position and we feel like we're going to be able to make a difference and inevitably get the outcome we want. But I feel like myself, I know you have, and I feel like a lot of people are learning the lesson with the Pac-12, which is they may say one thing, but 9 times out of 10, it's a different thing that's actually going to happen. And in the case of this contract, I just don't see how what's the play? Like if you're the Pac-12, like I know I bring this up all the time, but I'm watching football last night and I thought about this because I knew we were talking about it today. If you're the Pac-12, like what is the play? What can you do to get out of this, or to like get past this? Your only play is to negotiate the cost of the fees themselves, which everybody and their mom is now reporting that you asked for an incredibly high discount on those fees, which is why you're in court and not at a mediation table, because you're not seriously trying to come to a solution.
Yeah, I
So
think it was a huge mistake by the Pac-12 not to come out of mediation with a settlement.
yeah.
And I think it was the right thing to do. But that is what we've seen in this spat between these two sides, is that the right thing to do has never been done. The right thing to do was to merge, not done. The right thing to do was to not poach teams. That was not done. The right thing to do was to settle this case in mediation. That was not done. The right thing to do was not add more legal fees on top of this, but yet it pissed you off when GCU joined the league. So you've added that to an amended lawsuit and you don't have a leg to stand on. And that's why I go back to this lawsuit from these members with the exit fees. This is, and I'm just going to keep standing on business the same way that I have. What sense does it make that you're going to sue the Mountain West so you don't have to pay the exit fees that you, as a member of the Mountain West Board of Directors, enforced against San Diego State?
Which I just think is the nail in the hammer. If you're the Mountain West, if you're the Mountain West, you're sitting here. You've brought that very thing. If you guys don't remember, they had put out a statement several months ago now where they had referenced that very point. And so the what's clear, because we had speculated on the show for a while before it had all come out, like how aggressively was the Mountain West going to get after the Pac-12 for these fees? Like, was it going to be a thing of like, hey, no, you're paying the full amount or we're going to court and then you're still going to pay the full amount? Or was there room there? And it just feels like now, because the mediation didn't work out, I mean, if you're the Mountain West, what choice are you left with other than to just go after them for the full amount? I mean, I don't know what else are you supposed to do here?
Yeah, and I just don't understand why you didn't merge, because that was the right thing to do. And then these exiting members, not only did they try to enforce this policy against San Diego State, when the Pac-12 originally melted down and San Diego State had egg on their face and the pro rata they deserve, and they had to come back to the Mountain West, you all voted to stiffen the penalties in the process. And now you're in court trying to invalidate those penalties in that process because it's being applied to you. And it's what I've always said. Everybody loves rules and laws until they're applied to themselves. And then they're invalid and it's interstate commerce and freedoms and antitrust violations. Well, it turns out they're not antitrust violations when you knowingly signed a contract at the Pac-12, right? And now all of a sudden, when somebody says, well, you know, one of the provisions of a contract is you have to operate in good faith to execute the terms of that contract. And there's no legal precedent that says, well, I know it's an invalid contract, so I'm going to knowingly sign it anyway. There's nothing that says, well, did you know that it was invalid? Yeah. Then why'd you sign it? Well, because it was invalid. Oh, okay, you win. Find me a place in history in a conversation like this in these parameters where that's happened. It doesn't happen. And I go back to the ACC, ESPN. Oh my God, smoking gun. Holy shit, ESPN, ACC.
There's collusion.
I need to see it. There's fraud being committed. Oh, here's the contract. Well, looks good. Thanks for negotiating.
Wow, who knew?
And what came out of that? Oh, that's right. Everybody stayed in the ACC because there's no way out of. But that grant of rights is invalid until we go in front of a judge, and then we're going to settle and not valid. And then you read the Pac-12 statement, and I'm curious, what does this even say? The Pac-12 conference will continue to move forward with our legal action against the Mountain West. We appreciate the court's consideration of the issues at today's hearing, and we will wait for its decision. We remain confident in the strength of our position and remain focused on advancing the academic excellence, athletic achievement, and tradition that have defined the Pac-12 for more than a century. Well, the problem is lawsuits and legal fees have also defined the Pac-12 for more than a decade. Malfeasance and poor management have also defined the Pac-12 for more than a decade.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you guys need this money in the Pac-12. I totally understand that. You're fucking it up. This is a mistake. You're handling this completely the wrong way because all you're doing is I swear, I think you're the kid who can't swim, but all the other kids are swimming. So you're just going to keep wading into the water deeper and deeper and deeper because you don't want to admit you can't swim. So you won't settle this case in mediation. You don't like that the Mountain West didn't just shrivel up and die, which is why you amended your lawsuit with the GCU nonsense. Because, again, I know we hate the provisions of a contract when they're actually levied against us. The Mountain West had every single right to add GCU, when they added them and how they added them. And you had no say because you gave notice that you were leaving, and then you left, and then you're off the board. As soon as you give notice and send your deposit, you're off the board. You know how we know that? Because that's how you handled San Diego State. So the precedent's on the side of the Mountain West. The contract in its writings and the way it's written are on the side of the Mountain West. The good faith provision in a contract is on the side of the Mountain West. So I'm just asking, if you are the Pac-12, is this your ego? Or are these lawyers telling you, you're going to win this case? You're going to win this case. Keep paying us a retainer. You're going to win this case. Can we have more of the retainer? We used it. Okay, great. You're going to win this case. Hey, go ahead and cut us another check.
Or do they feel like they have no other play? Is it their only thing to do? They're too deep now.
But that's what this feels like. It feels like their egos will not let them back out of this. Because frankly, if you would just pay the $55 million, and if your members who are leaving the Mountain West and joining the Pac-12 would just pay the money that they are contractually obligated to pay, none of this would be in court. And if you had settled this in mediation, but then you got wind of GCU and how dare they not shrivel up and die, if you'd have settled this in mediation, we wouldn't be talking about this today. But you didn't merge and you didn't settle in mediation and you're suing again. And this is who you've always been. And my guess is it's who you'll always be.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I guess it goes without saying, but it goes further back. I mean, this is what you get for not taking the deal that was presented to you before the conference melted down. I mean, if you'd have just taken the $35 million a year, you'd have been totally fine. You'd have been totally fine. You'd have been in a good place. You'd be on the AP top 25 graphic, like with Oregon, and you'd be just fine. But you didn't, so now you're here. And for all the people commenting, oh, well, just merge, just merge. That's not going to happen, dude. If they were going to merge, it would have already happened. Again, that's where I think the pride gets in the way. But there's a reasonable part of me, a decent part of me that really believes that they're so deep into this thing financially, like even with their pride aside, which obviously is making things worse, but financially they're just so deep in it now that they don't really have another play. I mean, maybe the $55 million is too much for them to pay at this point. Like they don't have that money unless the Mountain West offers a payment plan, I guess. I mean, all jokes aside, like I'm concerned. You talk about like, can the conference survive? Can they move forward? Is it, in my opinion, when you lose this suit, what does that look like for the finances of the conference? Because again, as we talked about all offseason, if Boise State didn't bounce back as the same team, right? If you didn't have, a great secondary football team after Boise State, you weren't going to make a lot of money. And not only do you not have a great secondary, you don't have Boise State. They look pretty average this year, honestly. So I just don't know what you do for more money. That's the issue.
Yeah, I don't know that there is more money. And I think that one of the things that is at the heart of this argument, I think the GCU thing really caught the exiting members off guard. That's the only thing that I can express, because it makes the Mountain West more money, because GCU is going to the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll remind you that those tournament shares stay with the conference. And it is, you can't tell me this puts undue duress, that they're saying that it's unfair competitively for their athletes. In no way, shape, or form can they prove that, at least not yet. Like, it's remarkable to me that we continue to fight these fights, and somehow there's just never evidence-based arguments being made. And I know that's who we are in this country now. We sue for things that we know we did wrong, and we just don't believe there should be any repercussions because it's us and it's not somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just want to sue, and whatever, we'll get out of it. You're not going to get out of it. And I just, it's stuck in my craw that these two couldn't get the best future together and merge. And again, we reported exclusively, and what I think everybody else has confirmed on the show, Gloria Nevarez is the one who suggested merging at least 3 different times, and was summarily dismissed every time that she broached that. And I'll just never understand it. I'll never understand it. I want to. And the sad thing is, I go back to what you said about $35 million. If the Pac-12 had taken $35 million per school per year in a media rights deal, they would still all be together. Washington State, Oregon State, the original Pac-12 would still be together. Had they brought in BYU, they'd still be together because they'd have a long-lasting relationship with the ESPN. They didn't do that. Had they done good business, and had they communicated with their constituency on a regular basis, and SC and UCLA hadn't run off to the Big Ten, they'd still be together. Had they done a deal with DirecTV, they'd still be together. And $35 million probably would have been $40 million. But they didn't do that. The Pac-12 network languished in office buildings in downtown San Francisco that they could not rightly justify the cost of. But they did that anyway. And they continue to do stupid things like put a lawyer in the official replay booth. They continue to do stupid things like have terrible officiating. They continue to do stupid things like hire bad commissioners who make bad decisions, and they put out bad information, and they use their mouthpieces in the media to attack other people Instead of handling their business, they continue to do stupid things like keep the terms of their media rights deal private, so they're not financially competitive. They continue to do stupid things. And that's why the Pac-12 is unlikely at any point ever to become an A4 conference again, a power conference. They are unlikely at any point to consistently put multiple teams at the top of the college football playoff, because you have to be well managed as a G5 to do that. They're not going to make the money they're supposed to make because, frankly, whenever has the Pac-12 made the money that they're supposed to make? When have they fully leveraged the power of what was one of the best brands in college athletics? Try never. And that's who the Pac-12 is. And you know that they know that because they continue to attack the Mountain West. They continue to say, we don't want you to thrive. It's not enough that we're leaving you high and dry. It's not enough that we allegedly violated the terms of our scheduling agreement. It's not enough that we're going to try and stifle you to the very last second by waiting until the very last minute of time to submit our departure notices and deposits. But after we do that, and we're removed from the board of directors per the terms of our charter in the Mountain West, then when you go on about your business and you continue to expand and you add GCU a year early, which by all accounts is a really good financial decision for the Mountain West, we're going to amend a lawsuit and sue you again because we're really pissed that you're not failing and going away like we thought you would. That's who the Pac-12 is. That's who they're going to continue to be.
And I just don't know why they go down that path, man.
It's bad karma. There's
Yeah.
no question. It is very bad karma.
And you would think that they would have learned from all the, like, you talk about bad karma, like, you'd have thought that at some point they'd have learned the lesson of, like, hey, we sue people, bad things happen, right? Like, hey, we sue people and we spend a lot of money and, you know, we don't really get a whole lot out of that. And that's what's difficult. And I just think that, I don't know. I remember questioning, I remember being on the show questioning, hey, like, why Teresa Gould? Why did you go? Like, I understand Scott Barnes, totally get it. But why Teresa Gould, man? Why old world Pac-12 trying to fix a new world problem? I don't know either. And what's really, to me, the biggest crying shame in the whole thing is that now we're in a place in college athletics, but, you know, for our show, college football, where we have people complaining about the Big Ten, you know, playing late ass games on the West Coast because the Pac-12 couldn't figure it out, and now USC's in a different conference. And that to me is where it's like, you know, we see little droppings all across college football that have come from this situation. And I just say, like, man, like, it just doesn't seem that difficult. It just didn't seem like that hard of a decision to be like, yeah, you know what? Like, we don't really have a lot of other decisions, and $35 million a year per school is not what we want per se. But gosh, it's pretty solid, and it ensures the conference moving forward. It would be like corporate America not doing layoffs when they very clearly need to do layoffs. You know, like, it was not a hard decision, and it frustrates me to this day that we have to sit here and endure this as college football fans, because it's just totally and completely unnecessary. And my last point would be, for all the people, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the CW deal, for all those people saying, oh, well, they'll be on TV and huge viewership and incredible matchups. Yeah, I saw the CW on YouTube TV over the weekend. Did I watch it? Absolutely not. No, I didn't. Absolutely not. Because you know what? There were better matchups on the TV that I spent my time on. I know, that's rocket science. So
I think it's tough when Boise State comes out and lays the egg that they lay. That's very bad for the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to be a battle, but I don't know. Mike Smith, nothing but if we bought Greenland, this is another story. Okay. That's fine. Okay, Mike. PAC would have could have brought in BYU, could have merged with the Big 12, could have taken an ESPN big, could have merged with the Mountain West. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while, not the pack. Truth. I mean, it's amazing to me. Big Daddy Dallas blows my mind why they never. It's why I don't care about if the pack dies. And that continues to be, I think that's a huge talking point. The Pac-12, I think, is isolating itself. And I understand that I understand that the Pac-12 is what an exciting brand, but I just go back to what Jake said for how many months? What are they offering? What are you selling? Because you can't tell me these 5 exiting members of the Mountain West left the Pac-12 for a CW deal again. I just don't believe that. And you can't tell me we were at whatever it was, $15 million a year. Now you can't tell me they're north of 10. I don't even know. Did they retain inventory and the sales ability in their TV broadcasts? I would hope so, because that could be a saving grace, but we don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we can just assume that they did, right?
It's wild. It's wild. Randy Riding. Maybe the WAC would take a couple of these Pac teams when they crumble. But I don't know that the Pac-12 is going anywhere. I'm certainly not rooting for them to fail. I mean, there's a lot of really good brands in that conference that are important to college football. And I hope people understand, like Boise State's an incredibly important brand. I think Oregon State's an incredibly important brand.
Those are the two in my eyes. Those are the two where it's like, hey, like those two, let's say that the Pac-12 did, dissolve and it just didn't exist anymore. Those would be the two schools that I would point at and say, yeah, this is specifically Oregon State, because Boise State chose their path and made their own bed. But Boise State or Oregon State, they obviously were quite a bit out of control in the old Pac-12 conference, just with the dynamic and where they were at. And I just think it's unfortunate. And I'm inclined to think that somebody would pick up Oregon State. I do think they bring value. But again, I just think that the Pac-12 is a cautionary tale to right now, specifically the Big 12 and the ACC, of like, hey, this is how quickly things can change when you make bad decisions. And I trust Brett Yormark explicitly as far as him running the Big 12 and them making good decisions. But I don't trust Jim Phillips. I'll be honest. I don't. Like, I think that conference has had a lot of waves, and it's not Jim Phillips' fault. But I also am not like, oh, man, dude, like, I just feel Jim Phillips is really making me feel warm and fuzzy about the future of this conference. Like, we're all sitting here talking about people rooting for the Pac-12 to fail. How many people are waiting for 2036 or whatever for all these teams to leave? Then what? Like, that's my problem with college football right now. It's a bomb. It's a ticking time bomb.
Very interesting point. It's a very interesting point. I don't know. I think it is very interesting that this is all happening. And I think that I don't know how you fix it. I don't know if you can fix it. I guess that's the biggest question. TJ Beck, with all the litigation, and oh, by the way, I think they still owe money to the Rose Bowl. Who would really want to trust the Pac-12 in the future? It's a good question. I think it's a very difficult argument, and it's why this expansion thing. I'll go back to Tulane and Memphis. If you're Tulane in Memphis, is that an attractive partner to be in business with? Because we heard all about, for instance, Memphis. Oh, Memphis. I don't live in a what-if scenario. Well, you're not in a what-if scenario anymore. You are in a CW self-produced game scenario. And
I don't live in a what-if scenario.
And then you got to say to yourself, well, and this also, because when Dr. Scott came on the show, what did he say to us? Well, I don't want to fly my soccer team commercial. They deserve better than that. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Right? Like, it doesn't make sense.
I just think it's why the new entity has to happen. Like, everyone with as far as the new entity is concerned, everyone's focused on, the SEC and the Big Ten. And I understand that. Obviously, I understand that. But I think when you start getting into the weeds on like, hey, well, how far reaching would the new entity be? What benefits can the new entity have as far as making college football specifically healthier? And if you make college football healthier, and when I
Yeah.
say healthier, I mean, hey, like, Pac-12, ACC, everybody and their mom. If you have a college football team, you have the ability to play for a national championship, and we're going to dissolve conferences, and we're going to create a new system that allows everybody just to figure it out on the football field. And within that, we can make sure that the level of competition is fair and equitable, and we don't have, the flag football team playing, Georgia, but like we can figure that out. And that's where I think the more I've thought about it, the more I feel like maybe this Pac-12 thing isn't going to get figured out. Maybe the Pac-12 needs to die. Maybe the Pac-12 needs to dissolve. So then that way there's motivation to work with the higher ups in college football to say, hey, yeah, we want to get involved in this. What role can we play? Because I still don't buy that the Teresa Goulds of the world are playing a positive role or making any type of impact in those conversations. You're more interested in doing front office sports interviews than you are securing your future, which is really bothersome.
Yeah, and I just go back to Teresa Gould, and I continue to say this, and I don't know how many people understand. Teresa Gould and Gloria Nevarez go back a long way. They used to work together at the Pac-12. So these are not new foes, or, I don't even know that I would call them foes necessarily, but these are not two executives who aren't familiar with each other. They know each other. They know each other well. And it's why I'm so surprised that you weren't able to get an agreement done to merge these two entities. Chewy Gonzalez for $5. USF first candidate to join the ACC when they become Spirit Halloween store. Well, I think USF is in a very interesting position.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the connection. I geographically it makes sense, but I think what you're missing, Chewy, is that Miami and Florida State are not going to be seen to be in the same conference with USF, with all due respect.
I don't even know that they'll be in the same. I don't believe. Yeah, we'll see. It's so far away.
It is.
It's so far away. Perry Stevenson, UNLV's looking pretty good. Has shown improvement every week. 3-0, and in the driver's seat in the Mountain West could be. And
you mean in the Pac-12, right? Oh no, that didn't work out either. My bad. Sorry.
The radio wizard of the Northwest still probably reporting UNLV is going to the Pac-12, which they're not. Illumin Dursky, hello, my friend. Instead of hiring a bunch of lawyers, it sounds like they need some more accountants. They need a business operator.
They need vision. That's what they need.
They need somebody who understands it. Nebraska Steve, I would not be surprised if the Pac-12 gets raided by the ACC, the Big 12, thereby resulting in the Pac-12's collapse once again. I just don't think there is a reason for the Big 12 could have had Oregon State already. I told you this before Oregon State signed the new grant of rights in the Pac-12. Again, an exclusive we had here on the show that got picked up nationally. Oregon State, we were told multiple times, tried to find a way into the Big 12 before signing that agreement in the Pac-12, and they could not get it done. Could not get it done. So I think that's very interesting. King of Thailand, Scott Barnes has proven to be inept and unable to make a deal. I disagree with that. He talked a big game, and yet nothing materializes. Scott Barnes, at the genesis of this controversy, was too loyal. And he and his president stayed in the Pac-12 too long. Every one of those member institutions should have been looking for a way out in May, June, and July. And when this thing melted down in August, September, you're stuck at that point. And Scott Barnes tried to get into the Big 10, never got close. Tried to get into the Big 12. He was too late because the Arizona schools, BYU and Utah, were there already. Like BYU was there already. Utah, Colorado, like he's just too late. And now you find yourself in a situation where you're probably 30, 40, maybe $50 million light every single season on media rights. And
which is not sustainable.
It is brutal. It is brutal. I know it has to be covered as it is sports news, but at this point, not sure the PAC even deserves our attention. It seems they can only garner negative attention by their own hand.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I agree with the negative attention portion, but I think that this is in my opinion, this Pac-12, and I know it's the Pac-12 in the Mountain West, but really it's a Pac-12 issue. This issue that they've created, to me, is the first fight for the future in college football, because whatever happens here is obviously going to impact the schools involved in the Pac-12. And obviously, as we've just spent an hour discussing this, the implications don't look too rosy at this point. And so, everybody's speculating, hey, well, where's everyone going to go if this conference, because again, I'm not even comfortable. Like, I feel weird saying this conference. Like, it's not really even a conference at this stage. Like, it's not officially by NCAA mandate a conference. Like, there's still work to be done, which, again, not to retread the whole thing, just brings me right back to, hey, well, if you're not even a conference yet, you're in litigation. You still got to find another full athletic.
They have that with Texas State. I mean, in name. I know that Texas State's the seventh largest brand. I think they're a school away as well, and I don't know who that is. Which is why I think they would love to get Memphis and Tulane.
Okay, so it's correct that they have the number of schools, but I would also make a strong argument that given the situation the Pac-12 is in, you don't have enough schools. You're one school away from not being a conference. And given the footing that you're on, given the money you're not making, given the lack of prosperity on the horizon for the conference, it wouldn't be like if tomorrow we heard, hey, like this school or that school decided to pull the plug and wants to find greener pasture. That wouldn't be surprising. I mean, honestly, that just wouldn't be that surprising, which is why I say, like, right now you do, but how long until, the conversation isn't about legal fees and legal, movement that you're initiating, and it's about your survival again. That's what's hard.
And my opinion is it should be about their survival right now, because everybody mocks the Mountain West as this league that doesn't have X, Y, or Z. Well, what is this? Right? Let me get that comment down. I apologize. What is this right here? This is not exactly a murderer's row lineup.
Not a CFP football conference.
I mean, and this is why I said earlier, you guys, you look at Boise State struggling this year. It's devastating for the Pac-12, because Colorado State, Fresno State clearly is headed in the right direction. Oregon State, I would think Oregon State's going to remain competitive. San Diego State's garbo in football. Texas State, like you look at Utah State. I think with Bronco Mendenhall, you're in good hands. Washington State doesn't have the cash to deliver. Washington State's not going to compete, right? And I think when you start looking at Texas State, you really need it. This is a two-team football conference, and that's only if you consider that Boise State is one of those two. I think you are looking at a situation where you need, I think, Utah State, I think Oregon State, and I think Fresno State. You need those three to be rock solid every single year, and that would mean that Boise State hasn't slipped at all. And we already know without Ashton Ginty, they're not the same football team.
No.
So I think that's tough. And then I think this story right here, when you start talking about how in the ways that the Big 12 is viable, this story right here is a big deal, because I think when you start looking at how the Big 12 is handling this is what the Pac-12 has refused to do. And you look at the fact that they are essentially suspending two officials, and Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach at Missouri, I think should be disciplined for this. He admits he intentionally broke the rule and knew what he was doing. And this was a situation where there was a penalty. They were backed up. They decided, hey, let's try and punt it. And you're not allowed to punt in that situation. You're not allowed a quote unquote free kick. And they admit that they knew that was the rule, but the officials didn't catch it. And so they were suspended for their next assignment. And this is exactly what the Big 12 should have done. It is, you're an official. It is your job to know that rule. It is your job to know how to deploy that rule. Yet they have never done that.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think as far as Drinkwitz is concerned, I mean, to me, violating that rule is the same thing as having one of your players pretend you have an injury, right? To stop the clock or whatever. I mean, it's the same. It's the same type of scheming and trying to bend rules and hope you don't get caught and that type of behavior. So should he be suspended? I mean, I guess. I mean, it's to me, it's no different than any other rule. But I under no circumstance should those officials, just be held, without a suspension. So I like what the Big 12 is doing. And I think, people are like, oh, well, why is this a big deal? What's the difference between a punt and a free kick? What's the like, do you understand the difference in situation? Do you understand how uncomfortable, like, just generally speaking, one, how rare a free kick is, but then number two, how uncomfortable it is. You're talking about taking 2 strides and then just kicking the football. It's totally different than punting. It's totally like there's a price to pay. There's a reason the rule stipulates that it's a free kick situation. So it's incredible that he knew the rule and the officials apparently didn't know the rule or just were like, whatever, we're sleeping. And then that took place. I'm glad the Big 12 is being as aggressive as they're being with this, but I hope we don't have to talk about officiating again in this way this year.
Yeah, I just don't know how you. I think this is another Brett Yormark stroke of genius. I think it is one of those things where this is exactly what the Big 12 should be doing, and it's exactly what the Pac-12 has never done. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. Nebraska Steve, should Memphis, who desperately wants to leave the AAC, seriously consider being a football only? No, under no circumstance. What's the value of that? And that, I think, is the question. If let's look at it from a sales perspective, what value does the Pac-12 bring to Memphis that Memphis isn't already getting from the AAC? I don't know either. But what are you worried about if you're Memphis and you're going to the Pac-12? Significantly more cost, overhead, infrastructure, and wear and tear on your athletes and coaches for travel. You have no idea what the media rights deal is. You don't know if you're in a long-term fit, or you don't know what the long-term viability of that conference is. And your aspirations are to be a P4. None of that gets fulfilled by going to the Pac-12. And I understand that, hey, you know what? You're in a conference that does not fulfill your basketball needs. The Pac-12 does not fulfill your basketball needs. Because I don't think they would join. I think they would join as a football only. And then you got to ask yourself, okay, well, why are we doing this as a football only when basketball is our biggest area of need right now? There would be no reason for them to do that.
And I'm not sure that, like, yes, they want to leave the AAC for, in my opinion, the Big 12. I think that's what they would love to see happen, mainly because they lobbied the Big 12 to do that. But I'm not sure that I would say they're desperate to leave the AAC. I think that's a little harsh. They want to. They would like to, but it's not like they're desperate. Would infer that they're willing to take the deal the Pac-12 offered to leave the conference, which they haven't done.
Which clearly they're not.
Yeah, and they're not going to do. So I just think I'd be careful, Steve, saying like they're desperate to leave the AAC and they're desperate to leave, the inferred crappy situation that they find themselves in. The issue for Memphis is that they carry that conference, right? And they obviously, had a huge part in the FedEx situation and that relationship and it goes without saying that they're one of the most forward-thinking universities in athletics. I mean, Dr. Scott straight up said that athletics, I can't remember the exact percentage, but athletics, holds a ton of water as far as paying the bills for the university as a whole, which is kind of a rare situation at most schools.
I
So,
would agree.
so that's why you're not going to do that.
Yeah, I desperate, use whatever adjective you want, right? Joey B, when does Jake start to wear rain suits to the show? Rainy season is upon us in Oregon and Eugene.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, bro. It's supposed to rain all day today, and it hasn't rained at all. So I'll believe it when I see it.
Sean McJunkin. Always risky when you do the unknown, not a member comments.
Yeah, let's see what this is about.
Oregon State has one of the richest alumni in the world. He just doesn't follow football. Okay. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what you mean. Blue Turf, explain what happened.
With what?
Drinkwitch being Drinkwitch, causing his fan base to drink a bit. Well, there is that.
Right.
There is that. Monty, can you tell me what makes Scott Barnes a good administrator? Not being a dick, please convince me he is your voice of reason. The money he makes is universities. The stability he brings to the athletic departments he administrates. It's not his job solely to get into a P4 conference. If you look at the work that he did at Utah State, he was a miracle worker. And he's well respected. He is well liked. And look what happened to Utah State when he left. Look at what happened to Oregon State when he got there. Prosperity, competitiveness, good coaches, good recruiting, good budgets, stadium renovation. It's not in question. Scott Barnes is a good administrator. He's a good people person. He's good at his job. He understands how to hire and fire people. He understands when to hire and when to fire people. Like, to me, it's not a question.
I mean, his only mistake was that he was just too loyal to the Pac-12 brand at the end of the day. And I think, yeah, I mean, I don't think that Scott's a bad person. I don't think he's a bad administrator. I think that the situation they found themselves in was one that didn't really have a lot of precedent, honestly. I mean, you were, again, not that they're a second class brand in the big picture, but in the Pac-12, you were a second tier brand compared to the other schools in the same conference.
Right.
And you just weren't, you didn't say to yourself, you didn't do what most people should do, which is, what's the worst case scenario if this happens? Like, what position are we going to find ourselves in? And I think he just leaned on his people too much, and it burned him. And other than that, he's been really good. Because remember, before Carol Folt picked up the phone and talked to Kevin Warren all those years ago, like, Oregon State was climbing the charts and was not someone you wanted to play on a Friday night at the end of the season. That was not a team you were trying to play at their place to end the season. And they were a problem. And I will never forget Oregon State ruining one of Oregon's seasons several years ago. So he's not a bad guy. He made one mistake, and unfortunately, it's going to cost him 5 to 7 years of time, I think.
We were at the chicken place for that game.
Yeah. Super Chicks.
Super Chicks.
Yeah.
That's right. What a game. Jimmy Otson. Hello, Jimmy. Well, then, learn him some football, boy. He could find the entire conference with the change in his $1 billion couch fund. Yeah, I agree with that. Scott, boy, what is going on in Manhattan, Kansas? I mean, Scott, I don't know, in Big 12 fan, please. This feels like the season's lost. And again, I'm humble. You guys know that I would never tell you, I told you so.
No.
Wear a size 15 shoe and
Length and girth.
I mean, I'd never point those things out to you and your mom. But Avery Johnson is who we said he was. And that was all on full display with a late interception thrown 3 feet behind a receiver over the weekend. It feels like the season's over. And
it is.
It's September 9th. And I don't know how you recover from this. I don't know how, if you're in Kansas State fan country, I don't know how you recover from this. I don't. What a waste that $100 million not going to something worthwhile. Okay. Mike Smith, speaking of Oregon State, Nashawn Wright went there and he got a pick 6 off JJ last night. Yes, he did.
Again, game should have been over right there. Game should have been over. Should have never been a question about who was winning that ball game. Yet here we are.
Getting a pick 6 without your 2 best cover corners dressed.
Because it's a garbage throw. It's a terrible throw.
Yeah,
like
but it is what it is. Oregon State is winless so far. They are.
Yeah.
This has not been a good start for the Pac-12. I mean, there's no other way to. We can spin this any way you want, but you look at Oregon State at 0-2, and you've lost to Cal and Fresno State. And the Fresno State loss, dude,